Hello everybody, Vincent is back, and of course I am here to share my story about my exit out of the Watchtower Society and how I became a follower of Christ. And I am very excited to share my story with as many people as possible. Now, first of all, I just want to mention that I do have a microphone now, and it's a corded microphone, and I'm really hoping it improves upon our volume issues, because I know many have said that the volume has been a problem. So let me know in the comments if it makes a difference, and that would make me very happy. So anyway, you notice how I always say that I'm excited to share my journey out of the Watchtower Society. Why is that? Why am I so excited to share my story? Well, first of all, what I was thinking about is how we are all unique, and God works with us in different ways. We all have different needs, different desires, and different things that need to be uprooted out of our hearts. And so with hindsight, I can see why Christ dealt with me the way he did. I needed certain things uprooted from my heart. But during that journey, I always envied those people that once they seen the truth of the Watchtower, and they may have been on the Watchtower super highway all their lives, commonly known as the highway to hell, of course, but they would see the truth about the truth, and they would immediately see the sign that says exit only, Christianity straight ahead, and then shortly after leaving the Watchtower, they would become a follower of Christ. And I always looked at those people early on and thought, why can't I do that? I mean, I want God. I loved God. I loved Christ. Why can't I make that happen? I couldn't make it happen. And we're going to talk about that later on when we get to that part of my journey. No, my journey was long. It was windy. It was depressing at times. It was very lonely. I would head down paths that turned out to be dead-end roads, so to speak, and I would quickly come back only to be lost again. And then other times I would be heading down a road that I thought, this is it. This is it. This is going to take me to where I need to be. And no. It was pretty much like, GPS, when they tell you have arrived, and you look around and you haven't arrived anywhere. You're going in circles around an empty field. Well, that's the way it was with me on some of my paths. I would get to a destination and after a while realize that, no, this is not what Christ has in store for me. And so once again, I would be lost, not realizing or not knowing how to get to where I needed to be. Think about it. Think about someone who's lost in the woods. All they know is the direction of north. That's it. They know they need to head north, but after that, they really don't know where to go. They're lost. That's the only thing they have in their mind. They don't even know where their destination is going to be, if they're even going to arrive in the right spot. They just know north is north. And that's the way it was with me. I thought I wanted God. I desired God. But how I was going to find God, what was going to happen, I had no idea. No idea whatsoever. And so much has happened along that journey, and I've learned so much, and I can see why Christ has dealt with me the way he has. There never was a aha moment with me when I said, I'm going to become a Christian. I'm going to read my Bible, and I'm going to become zealous. I'm going to, restore my love for God and that fire in my heart again, and that's what's going to happen. No, there never was an aha moment. There was only one aha moment, and that day happened when I was driving to work on Interstate 5. I was heading out to a smaller town, and I was approaching Olympia. That's the capital of Washington State, and there's this area of the freeway on Interstate 5. It's called the Nisqually Valley. And I was just driving along, everything was normal. And then I had an experience. And that was the day that Christ found me. And there never was a day before it, and there never was a day after it, that I experienced anything like that. It is a day that changed my life forever. And it was one of those experiences that many Christians, you find out, had these similar experiences. And it was one of those things that you heard about when you were a Jehovah's Witness and you thought these people were crazy. No, they are not. I was found by Christ that very moment. And it changed my life forever. And we're going to talk about how that, what kind of things did it change? What was given to me that day? I want to share those things much later on. But you can see why I'm excited to share this journey, because so much has happened, and I want everyone to hear my testimony, because it's a way of encouraging people to continually seek Christ, at all times. Well, what are we going to talk about today, though? Well, you're probably thinking, aren't we going to talk about what we've been talking about? No, actually we're not. We're going to talk about something different. We're going to talk about the call and the download. Now, if you haven't watched the final days and the final hours video, I really encourage you to go back and watch those two videos first before you watch this one, because what I am doing in this video is I am continuing the chronological order of events that happened to me when I left the Watchtower Society. Now, if you remember in the video, The Final Hours, that evening, it was going to be the last day, the last time I would ever enter a Kingdom Hall for the rest of my life. And if you remember, I was standing outside and there was an elder and he started to pray out loud, and he wanted, to somehow have this prayer affect me. And all I thought is, this guy is weird. This is freaking me out, and I'm going to go home. And that's what I did. I went home. How did I feel that night when I went back? Well, like I've been saying through all of these videos, the best word to describe how I felt was scared. Very scared. I had no idea what was going to happen after this day. I had no idea where I was going. I was very depressed. I was lonely. The world took on a different look to me. I had no other worldview other than through the lens of the Watchtower Society. So it was a very crazy time for me. Well, shortly after that, I would say it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, it had to have been long enough for people to realize that Vincent was no longer at the meetings. Something must be wrong with him. Now, not everyone, there's a lot of gossip, I know, in the Kingdom Hall, but everyone must not have known why I was not going to the meetings, because a few weeks later, this group of sisters, they were out in the ministry, and they stopped by my house to try to encourage me. And so in this group of sisters, there was one particular sister, and this was one of those individuals that I did appreciate in the congregation, because she was one that was full of energy, just full of life, enthusiastic, always laughing a lot, and she was known for getting Happy Meals at McDonald's. So, you would come home from service, and if she was in the group, you never felt depressed when you got home. You felt like you had a pretty good day. Well, she was one of those sisters in the car group, and she came over to me. I was sitting down, and she grabbed my arm, and she said, "Vincent, we really, really miss you." And that's exactly how she said it, too. Well, I was talking to my son about this, and something my son said is, she was very sincere when she said that. They really did miss you. And I thought about that. That is so true, because I thought about how I felt all through the years that, there could be a body of, 6, 7 elders. It really didn't matter. There was usually one elder, maybe 2 elders that you really looked up to. They were the ones that brought encouragement in your mind to the congregation. You enjoyed their talks. You enjoyed their personality, their genuineness about the scriptures, about God. Well, now look at it through her eyes, through their eyes. Maybe you were that elder that was encouraging to them. Maybe you're the one that encouraged them all the time to share more in the ministry, to read the Bible more, to get closer to God, all of these things. And now here you are. You're in your house, and they're looking at this man that was once known as a person that would never leave the Watchtower Society. And now he is not there. Think about how they feel. They must have been very depressed. I know I was depressed in the past when this kind of stuff happened as well. So her words were very genuine, just like my son said. Well, of course, at the time, I wasn't processing these thoughts. This is something that has just happened recently. At that time, though, I had a lot of feelings pent up. I was angry, I was depressed, but I also wanted people to know the truth about the truth. And Vincent can't, well, most of the time he can't keep his mouth shut. He says what's on his mind, and that's what happened here this day. Now, for much of this video, I'm going to be referring back to my original story that I wrote. Because if you remember right, I wrote this in real time, meaning as events happened, I would immediately write them down, or I would wait till the next day and I would write down what happened, and I would record to the best of my ability the exact words that I used when I spoke to individuals. And so I'm going to be reading a lot of the things that I actually said. Now, I might become a little bit triggered because this takes me back. I mean, I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly how I felt, everything when I read what I'm going to read to you. I'll try to be calm, but I was actually very angry during much of the things that we're going to talk about here. Well, those sisters, after she said that she really, really missed me being at the Kingdom Hall, I looked at her and I said, well, I found lies within the Watchtower Society's publications. In fact, would you like me to show you a video where I can show you one of those lies? And that video was about the history of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it was about the generation of 1914, and they had a lie in that video, and I wanted to show her that. And then I made the statement to her that I would never step foot again into the Kingdom Hall. Well, immediately after that, you should have seen the fear in their eyes, especially in her eyes. They took off so quick. They said, oh yeah, we just thought we would stop by, and you know, we just really need to get back out in the ministry. Well, they left, and immediately, and then a couple days later, and now I'm just assuming that this happened because they probably went back to talk to the elders and tell them what I said. Because a couple days later, I got a text from an elder, maybe even a couple elders, I can't remember, and they wanted to help me. Well, I told them in the text, I said, you can't help me because you lack knowledge. I said, I know too much, and that's why you can't help me. Well, I can't remember how the text ended, but that's pretty much how it ended. When there was no, you know, have a nice day type ending. That's about it. And then a couple days later, I received the call. That's why we call this the call and the download. Let's talk about that, the phone call here. I received this call, and I thought there was only one elder on the line, but it turned out to be two elders. And so what they did was they did what typical elders do. They just had all their little sweetsy, you know, introduction, like, oh, how are you doing, Brother Gomez? So nice to hear you, blah, 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 blah. Well, how did I respond to this? Well, it wasn't nice, I can tell you that. I said, I was an elder, and I know exactly what your purpose is. You don't care about me one bit. You don't care if I am happy. You want to try and disfellowship me. Well, I am not playing your games. Immediately, their tone changed, and it was no longer, oh, we love you, Vincent. We want you to be happy and all of that. No, immediately, they asked the typical questions. And what was that? Do you believe this is God's organization? How did I respond? No, you are not going to do this to me. You just want me to say no so that you can disfellowship. I told you, I am not playing your games anymore. And that's when I went into my garage. And I remember I was pacing that garage back and forth, back and forth. And if you had your ear up to the garage, you would have thought a dragon was in there. I was breathing heavily, and I was not happy. I was in a rage when I spoke to these elders. Now, remember, I'm being very calm when I read this. This is not how it actually went down. I was very angry on that phone. So I went into my garage, and then they asked the question again. Do you believe this is God's organization? How did I respond? I said, well, would God's organization lie about not writing a biography of Russell? Would God's organization cover up the fact that we worshiped Jesus into the 40s? Would it hide 1,006 pedophiles in Australia alone? I have the transcript. Jeffrey Jackson misled and lied on that transcript. And then I switched gears here. I said, and what about that overlapping generations crap? That's exactly how I said it to them. I said, now they're just making up stories. None of it is in the Bible. And then I made the statement to them that you know that you don't even believe it yourselves. Now this next statement, it didn't mean, I always say this, didn't mean I was becoming a Christian or anything. It's just that it was the authority that I could use behind my words. I said, I will serve Yahweh the way I please and not by the dictates of 7 little men sitting in New York. Like I said, I was in a rage when I was telling them this. And then they asked me another typical question, and that is, do you want to be a Jehovah's Witness? And how did I respond to that? I told you I am not going to play the game. What I want is for everyone to leave me alone. And at that point, I did calm down. I realized I needed to get control of myself at this point, and I apologized to them. I said, you know, I am so sorry if I sounded angry at you guys. I said, I have no problem with you at all. I said, I do care about you. I want you to be happy. I am simply angry with the Watchtower. I am just a victim. You guys are victims. We are all victims of the Watchtower. And that's when the conversation ended there. I can't remember the exact words, but it just pretty much just probably said goodbye and just hung up at that point. Well, at that time, it was evening, and I decided I'm going to go to bed. And of course, I couldn't sleep. I had too much on my mind, and I said to myself, no, they're not going to get away with this. It's not going to be that easy for them. I want them to feel some pain. I want them to feel the pain that I had when I found out the truth about the truth. And yeah, I know I'm not a nice guy, am I? But that's what I was thinking at the time. So what did I do? That is when I sent the download. Yeah, the download was I went back and I downloaded a lot of information onto my phone because I wanted to send out this information to these elders. I may have sent some to the presiding overseer, I can't remember, but I know I at least sent it to these 2 elders. And what kind of things did I download? What did I send to them? Well, here's what it was. I sent them photographs of the PDF of Russell's biography and a photograph of the publication showing the extensive lie concerning not writing one. Then I sent them the official list of all 1,006 pedophiles with all the details of those individuals from Australia. And remember, I got all of that from the Australia Royal Commission website. So everything was actually official. It was genuine. I then sent them photographs of the transcript where Jackson, the governing body member, who lied and tried to mislead and dodge questions at the hearing for the child abuse cases in Australia. And then I sent them statements that were from the actual watchtowers. In the past, the Watchtower had always condemned the Catholic Church for covering up child abuse. Well, I sent them those statements, some statements from the Watchtower. And then I sent them this, and I think this was actually the best part of the download that I sent them, because it was something, this was one of those things that when I found it on JW Facts, I was just floored. I could not believe that I never noticed this all through the years, and it had to do with blood transfusions. In fact, I mean, this should be on my list of things as to why I would never go back to the Watchtower. I mean, this list is so extensive. This should wake up any witness. And what was this list? Well, here it is. This is what I sent them. Every line. 1940, blood transfusions are acceptable. 1945, blood transfusions are not acceptable. 1956, blood serums should be treated as blood and are banned. 1958, blood serums and fractions acceptable. 1959, storage of our own blood unacceptable. 1961, blood fractions are not acceptable. 1964, blood fractions are acceptable. 1974, blood serums are personal choice. 1975, hemophilia treatments are not acceptable. 1978, hemophilia treatments are acceptable. 1982, albumin is acceptable. 1983, hemodilution is acceptable. 1990, hemodilution is not acceptable. That was from the blood brochure. 1995, hemodilution is acceptable. And this list actually goes on and on and on. And I could read it, but I'm not going to. But I sent them all of this information concerning blood. Well, what happened after that? After that call and after I sent them this download of information, you would think that I would be disfellowshipped like the very next day. Well, that is what is very strange, and it's still a mystery to me as to why it didn't happen. But after that phone call, that was the last time I would ever hear from the elders or anybody in that congregation for at least 2 years. Now, someone told me, well, you may have sent them so much information that, they didn't want to disfellowship that quickly. But I don't believe that's true. I have no idea why they took so long after that. But that was the last time I really dealt with anybody, any connection with the Watchtower Society for 2 years. Now that is pretty much the end of this video, as far as that is how I went out of the Watchtower Society. Now later on I disassociate myself, but that's, like I said, 2 years later. But what happened to me during that time period? I mean, after this happened, what happened to me during that 2-year time period? Well, that's the stuff I want to talk about a little bit later. But we're going to conclude here because it's just like a movie, like I've said in the past. I mean, the next phase of my exit is very different from everything that we've dealt with today or talked about today, because after that, that's when it becomes just a conglomerate of different thoughts. I went down just various paths. I was going back and forth with thoughts when I was doing research. It was really a messy time for me the following 2 years. In fact, a lot of it I can't even remember. It's because of what I said before. I believe it was in my second video that all I basically did was read Bible Hub and do some other research. That was pretty much it. So we're going to talk about that much later on. But in the meantime, like, subscribe, and share these videos with as many people as possible, and we will continue this journey in our next video. Now, we may not continue the chronological order of events. There are a couple other things I would like to talk about first, and then we will get back to our journey here. All right, until the next video, we will see you later.